Winemakers have been trekking up to Monte Rosso Vineyard since the 1880s. It sits about 1,000 feet above Sonoma Valley, and it has a distinctive terroir. There are these rich red volcanic soils and a variety of elevations and exposures to the sun. Zinfandel and Cabernet Sauvignon do particularly well there, which is one reason Louis Martini Winery, which is owned by the Gallo family now, has been harvesting grapes there since the 1930s. Hi, I'm Tim Fish, Associate Editor of Wine Spectator, and I recently joined winemaker Mike Martini on a rugged ride through this classic California vineyard.
What we have here is Monte Rosso is a 600-acre ranch, originally planted in the 1860s, and then with the first scourge of phylloxera that came through California was wiped out and replanted in the early 1890s. And from that planting, we have about 50 acres left of Zinfandel vines up here that make our old vine Zinfandel. From this side over here, 600 acres, there's 252 acres that are planted or in the process of being planted. As we rotate some of the vines up here, we're traveling through Cabernet now, which is about 40% of the ranch, another 40% is Zinfandel. Your first look at old vine Zinfandel is here on the right. They're probably 120 years old. We face out against the San Pablo Bay, and it never gets hot like the valley floor. It never collects the heat. So in the canopy itself, we have relatively cool air, and that peaks the acids. So it keeps a very high acid profile compared to many Zinfandel vineyards. I'd say it's probably the biggest difference between here and, say, Amador, where they have old vine Zinfandels. They're usually couched down into canyons and valleys up there. And here, this is all exposed. So that exposure really, I think, gives a lot of depth and elegance to the Zinfandel that is here.
After we toured the vineyard and kicked the dust off our boots, Mike and I had a chance to taste some of the wines that he makes from Monte Rosso, including the highly regarded Monte Rosso Cabernet Sauvignon and the Gnarly Vine Zinfandel.
This is the 2005, what we call Gnarly Vine. And as you saw driving around the ranch, they're very gnarly vines.
They are gnarly. Oh, I like that. It has that classic sort of briary, but it still has that Monte Rosso core of, it's hard to describe, it's a structure. It has this almost natural structure to it
I think that's the acid that does that. The acid has a tendency to create smaller tannins, which are more in the back of your mouth, and so it creates an elegance and a length to the wine versus being big forward fat.
Is that fairly consistent from vintage to vintage, or?
Yeah, that's actually probably one of the things I look for up in this ranch.
It's a very nice example. It's a very pretty. It has just enough of that zesty sort of briariness I love in a Zinfandel, but it has that nice structure behind it too as well.
And this is a little redder fruit than most of them are. Most of the gnarlies, a little riper year, have a little more black raspberry than the red raspberry. This one, but this will probably age better than the other ones. Being back on Monte Rosso really brought back memories for me. Years ago, Louis P. Martini, Mike's dad, took me on a drive through the vineyard in his beat-up Suburban, and he really seemed to know the vineyard grapevine by grapevine. It is an uncommon place, a unique slice of California wine history.